Good afternoon, Ron Graham, the Network Nation. Today's video, I wanted to take some time to go a little bit in depth between the big misconception of the 403B, 457s, and the 401ks. Now, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm telling you, I didn't realize how wrong the information was until I took my trusted phone and I went into it and did AI. And I'm asking it the differences, right, between the two. And I kept asking it and asking it. And I realized that even in the artificial intelligence universe, which a lot of us are getting spoiled with and using, didn't really have the right answers. And so I said, well, of course, there's so much confusion, even if the AI, right? And so there's no replacing the OI. The OI is organic intelligence that comes from above. And AI is artificial intelligence, which is man-made. So we already know the major flaws with that, right? So always do your fact checking. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to dive into today's video. We're going to clarify just what the key differences are between the two plans. And hopefully this will clear up a lot of the confusion moving right along. Ron G, aka your consult, the Net Worth Nation. Here we go. All right, guys. So, what is the real difference between these two plans? And there, even though it's been debated and there's a lot of debate going on out there, we have to still, be realistic about it. All right. There are some major differences. The first thing that we want to do is we really want to look at what's the obvious. Okay. And the obvious comes down to what type of employers are eligible for these plans. Because the reality of it is not everyone is going to be classified as the type of employee. So the first thing we want to look at is, do you work in the private sector or for a private corporation? Or are you in some form of public school or state law enforcement agency or a nonprofit organization? So that very first thing to clarify one misconception is, are you the type of employer that can get this done? So that's the first thing. All right. The second thing that's very, very important is how the contribution limits are arranged. So for those of you that don't understand contribution limits, for the short of the video, contribution limits explain what you're able to put into a plan based on what the IRS allows. And just for you guys, if you hadn't seen my previous video, I did explain that the 401k and the 403bs are nothing more than sections that are been allocated from the IRS tax codes. That's exactly how they got their name. Okay. So I hope I clarified that. So the contribution limits for each plan, for the 401k, it is 23,500 under normal conditions. And then for those of you who are beyond the age of 50, they do what they call a catch-up phase where they allow you to add an extra $7,500 in a year. And you'll notice that the 403b is very, very, very similar to that, right? So they're relatively the same when it comes to those two areas. All right, good stuff. How about the structure of the plan? This is where the rubber really meets the road. In other words, how plans are structured. This is why it's very important to get a solid understanding of the way you want to go about a plan. And we'll talk a little bit about plan structure after this. But the first thing is, when you look at a 401k, you're going to see what they call a lot of EFTs, mutual funds, individual stocks, individual bonds, and annuities. That's what's going to be the DNA, the core makeup of the 401k plan. Where on the other side of the coin, it's a little different. You're going to have some mutual funds and annuities. However, because these plans are primarily the financial engines of the insurance companies, they're going to have insurance characteristics like health riders and death benefits and lifetime income riders. So these are the things that are relatively different. Now, for those of you that will highlight that the 401ks have the capability to perform a lot higher and a little bit more aggressive because they do have more stock variety than the 403b, you would be absolutely correct. That will be the truth. The reality of it is that the 403b does not uh, rely heavily on the stock market. As a matter of fact, clue number one, the 403b is not invested directly in the stock market. All right. Let me get that straight, guys. Bingo. It's not directly invested in the stock market. That's a big one. Let's get that right. It's influenced, but not directly invested in the stock market. Okay. All right. Back to what we were talking about. All right. So 401k, 403b. So that's basically the plan structure. The next big thing that we want to make sure we understand are the investment strategies, right? So with that previous slide, you can clearly see that the 401k is primarily reliant on market performance, primarily reliant on market performance. Okay. Bear with me, the guys. Today, guys. I know the market kind of took a real dive, so hang in there, guys. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. Of course, unless you're not looking to retire at the end of 2025, it might be a little bit different for you. But for those of you that have another 5 to 10 years, hang in there. All right, back to our regular scheduled broadcast. So the 403b 457 relies on market performance as well as the structure of the insurance companies. Okay, so let me get that straight. It relies on market performance and the insurance structure. We'll talk about that a little bit briefly. Another thing is money is invested directly in the market, the 401k. With the 403b, the money is not invested directly in the market. Okay, it's not actually a market product, even though the market does influence the product. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Another thing, you can be very, very aggressive and grow your income very aggressively with the 401k because of its complete reliance on the stock market. You can do that. In this case, with the 403b, you can utilize unique booster strategies, which give extra bonuses if you have that type of aggressive mindset to push these products higher in market performance. So that, yes, you are able to do. Also, you can be a conservative investor in the 401k. You don't have to be as aggressive. You can use stocks that are a little bit more conservative with less payout. You can absolutely do that there. And then, of course, in the 403b, you can structure to be a little less aggressive, building more towards the lifetime income rider. So those are some of the key areas that you do there. Next one. What about the taxation? This is a big one. This is a real big one. Everyone wants to know, how am I going to be taxed? So with the 401k, you're doing pre-tax dollars, you're using pre-tax dollars, which in turn does reduce your current tax liability. So a lot of our high income earners will most likely pour in a lot of income. If they're really getting hammered with taxes, they'll put that income in there that would lower their tax liability. Uh, Secret strategy, uh, hint, hint. But anyway, they put it in there to lower that tax liability. 59 and a half withdrawal penalty is standard throughout all retirement-based products. That doesn't change. There are some variations. We can talk about that later offline. Any money taken out will definitely be taxed as ordinary income, no matter what. If you take out 20,000 or 30,000, it's going to go into the ordinary income cup along with your salary and any other money that you were given out during that tax year. And then, of course, the last one is the RMD. The required minimum distribution is 73. All that means is that by the time you're 73 years of age, whatever amount of money you have stacked away in that 401k, you will have to remove it and take it out of that policy. Okay, guys? So this is big time stuff. With the 403b, pre-tax dollars are not necessarily the case because you do have the ability to do either pre-tax dollars or after-tax dollars with the Roth. So the 403b 457s come in a Roth, which is taxed, or your money's already been taxed, or you can put it in what they call pre-tax dollars, very similar to the 401k. So you do have that option in the 403b. You're still going to get hit with that 59.5 withdrawal, 10% withdrawal penalty. It's very difficult to get around that no matter what. Of course, just like the 401k, any money that you do take out primarily prematurely will be taxed again as ordinary income whenever it's taken out. Not just prematurely, anytime you take it out, it's going to be taxed that way. However, the lifetime income capability of this plan can reduce your tax liability, meaning that you don't have to necessarily take out money at the age of 73, depending on how you allow us to structure your policy. All right. So this is very important, guys. It's very hard to make an informed decision when you don't have the right information. So this is for you to have the right information. So when you do pass judgment, you can start to at least have the right kind of conversation and the right type of judgment. It's only fair. Next, the flexibility of these plans. The 401ks plan, the flexibility is you do have a lot of flexibility when it comes to the investment strategies. You can invest in mutual funds, stocks, independent stocks, EFTs, overseas, local markets. You can go all kind of ways in the 401k. The 403b, not that much flexibility when it comes to your strategies, but you do have an awful lot of flexibility the way you want to structure your plan. For example, you could structure your plan for a Roth, you could structure your plan for a basic standard after tax, before tax. You could structure it to be heavily built on boosters. You can have it heavily built on what we call health benefits, meaning boosters and riders to protect you in case something happens, you get sick, you can't work. You can also set it up to pay you a salary for the rest of your life on the earth. So there's some flexibility in that area. So the 401k, again, at the end of the day, it's not as flexible when it comes to the payout. You have to take the money at 73 years of age. It is what it is. And you don't really have the flexibility when it comes to the taxes. When you take out the money, you're going to be taxed. And unfortunately, you do not have control over that taxation. Now, obviously, there's some things you can do offline. We can talk about that. But for the sake of this video, it is what it is. On the other side of the coin, you do have limitations when it comes to the investment strategies and, unfortunately, the eligibility. As we mentioned in the beginning of the video, not everyone is eligible for these plans because it is predicated on what type of employee you are, right? If you're not a state or law officer or those types of employees, or for a nonprofit organization, most cases you will not be offered these types of plans. So that's where the flexibility and inflexibility comes in. All right, won't hold you too long. As we close out, what is the bottom line when we think about this? And this hopefully will stick with you as we wrap up this video. All right, so what are our closing remarks? All right, number one, organically. Organically, we have to recognize that the 401k is not a retirement product. Now, how do we know that? If you watch the video I shot last year, wow, time flies, where I did the CBS special documentary on the 401k where they were interviewing all of the people that were behind it, you remember that the product was created because the corporations in the late 1970s, we all remember those treacherous gas lines and stuff when Jimmy Carter was the president. He was a great president, by the way. Great man, great humanitarian, by the way. Presidency, less to be desired. Sorry, I sidebar. But the point I'm making is that when you think about it, the product was created to take the pressure off of pensions that began to run out of money. And so they were created to subsidize the pensions that a lot of companies were getting away from. All right. But if you remember, a pension was to provide an employee with income throughout the remaining days of their retirement cycle. And of course, the 401k, as we learned today, doesn't have the ability organically to do that. However, organically, the 403B 457s can, meaning that within itself, we can sit down and structure the 403B to organically pay you a salary technically for the rest of your life, the same way a pension would absolutely work. Now, again, why am I saying this? Because this is a critical difference between the two policies, and it's a difference that's really not talked about a lot. Remember, I talked about the AI that I did earlier, and I tried to get the AI to give that information, and it didn't do it. You can play it at home, try it yourself, see if you get there. The last thing I want to mention is the long-term sustainability. Always remember, and I shot a video on this a couple weeks ago as well, any retirement product has to have what we call long-term sustainability. Again, the 401k is not a long-term plan. As we mentioned, at the age of 73, you must pull all of those resources out in order to continue along, meaning that 401k process will eventually come to an end. Now, where in the 403B, if you set it up that way, you would probably have to do the same thing, but at least we can have the conversation to determine if that's what you want to do. And last but not least, who's going to protect the income that's in the account? Who's the better protector, right? Well, we understand that the 401k is completely reliant on the market. For those of you that are not underneath a rock right now, you clearly know that the 401ks are taking a beating today and yesterday, and all this stuff's going on. So what is the difference on the other side? Well, the 403B 457s are also taking a beating, but because of the cap and floor structure that's embedded in the plan, the market will only drop where it will drop. And once it hits the floor, it doesn't go any lower. So that means that all of the premiums and the monies that are being put in there every single month, at least those monies will be there once the market begins to what? Rebound. Once that market rebounds and it starts to go on the upward spiral, now all of a sudden everything starts to normal back out. Unfortunately, with the 401k, the market will rebound, but depending on when your retirement date is, that may or may not make you feel better. All right. Hope this helped. Once and for all, wanted to really get the key things that this does. If you guys have any questions or any comments, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I love to have these types of conversations. I'm always here for you. Your console, Ron G, the Network Nation. Let's talk soon. Bye for now.